Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I'm a very grateful alcoholic.
Hi, Peggy.
Now, if some of you are still new and wondering why you're in this room, but you need to be here, being grateful probably wants to make you throw up. But I was grateful to find out that I was an alcoholic, that I wasn't just an insane human being doing the things that I was doing. I had no idea that I was an alcoholic. I knew I was drinking because I needed to drink. I needed to drink to stop what was going on in here and in here. I will start from the beginning, as our book says, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Midwesterners here, hi. I was one of 6 children. I was raised by a mom and a dad who loved all 6 of their children, but my head said, there isn't enough love for 6. I must be the one that's not loved. And I took that on as a very, very early age, not thinking that that would take me into my path being the alcoholic. I went to school to the nuns, and I will say I'm happy to be taught by the nuns. I got a good education. I was disciplined, but I was disciplined at home. So being disciplined at school didn't make any difference to me, because all I wanted was for my mother and father to believe I was a nice little girl. And I was telling Monica, the gal that I work with the other day, that I can remember one of my mother's friends saying, as they were having tea and I was sitting at the table with my mother and her friend, and I might have been 8 or 9 years old, and my mother's friend saying, "Isn't she dainty?" I thought she said dirty. And I was kind of looking at my hands and wondering what about me made her say that. But that's where this alcoholic head went all of the time. Nobody put me there, I put myself there. And as I grew up and went to school, as I say, taught by the nuns, I was the kid that went to Mass every morning because I wanted to. Again, I wanted you to see me and say, "Isn't she a nice little girl?" In life, I just so desperately wanted that, for somebody to know that and to tell my mother and father. So as I grew up and had friends, I didn't know why I had friends, but I figured it out. I was the sister between 2 brothers. Brothers played football, brothers were involved in sports, therefore the girls were attracted to my brothers, therefore I was their friend. Again, those of us who are alcoholic in this room, always busy, thinking in the negative, always busy not finding out who we really are. I took my first drink when I was 18 years old. I drank when the fellows started to come home from service, and I hate to say this part of my story because it makes me old. When the men were returning from the Second World War, these were guys that had either dropped out of school or were just of the age to be drafted, and most of my male friends went to service. And when they came home, I started to date. And I can remember one of my brother's friends who had asked me out. I thought, I wonder if he's asking me out because he's my brother's friend, and if that's the only reason. Again, I never fit in, and I'm sure those of you who are alcoholic, as I am alcoholic, can understand that and can see where that is going. I never fit in, although I acted as if. I acted like you acted. I dressed like you dressed. I talked like you talked, but never had that feeling that I was one of you, one of us. I dated Phil, and we became engaged. I became engaged because my friends were getting engaged, and I thought it was the thing to do. Was I in love? No. Did I know what love was? No. But I learned to drink with Phil. When I learned to drink, and I've heard it from other speakers this weekend, it made me your confidant, your therapist, your problem solver. Whatever it was that you needed, I became for you because that's what I figured that you wanted. Matter of fact, when I heard Rick, our Al-Anon speaker at the luncheon, after Rick spoke, if he's in the room, I was convinced I was an Al-Anon. But, you know, I thought about that again, and I thought I better not try to be an Al-Anon. I better stay right where I am. But I did those things, and I became part of things because I thought it was what I should be doing. Phil and I became engaged. We did not walk down the aisle. Being a young Irish Catholic girl, you don't have a child before you get married. And at that time, it just was not accepted to have that child before marriage, or to have a child when people were counting the months. Not to shame my family, what I choose to do was go to an unwed mother's home, give the child up for adoption, and say, I will never be a mother. I will never be involved in that part of life, being a wife or being a mother. I'll just take my path and continue where I'm going, which increased my alcoholism. What I got to do when I left work, I always did office work. My first job after high school was with Ma Bell back in Chicago in the accounting department. And each time a promotion came along, I got the promotion. I ended up working in personnel. I, as I say, continue to climb that ladder. I became a union representative, which allowed me time off from work, which means if I left the office, I could hand in a time off sheet, and I would give that to the company. I would give a copy to the union. The union would pay me for that time off, but I never turned in that part of the paperwork. I turned it into my manager at the phone company, so I didn't get paid, and I did not turn it into the union because I knew I really couldn't be that dishonest. And I was dating an alcoholic at that time. He happened to be a bartender. So there were a lot of nights I was going from work to the bar, closing the bar at 2 a.m., until we were sophisticated enough to find out that Cicero, the town right next to us, was open till 6 in the morning. If you be alcoholic like I'm alcoholic, you're certainly going to find out what that's all about. Many mornings I walked out of a bar in the daylight and thought, oh my God, how do I handle this? What do I do now? Well, I can't go to work because I am drunk and I reek of alcohol. I can't go home because my mother is going to say, where have you been all night? So there was always that game of finding people to go home with. And like I say, having a place to go when I decided I would not be a mother, I would not be a wife. I went to the bar and drank more with more people, never stopping to think what I was doing was tearing this woman's life apart. I want to be brief, as you were told, be brief. I decided that, where am I going with this? I could get another job. I had 2 jobs. I went to my day job. I went to the bar between the 2 jobs. I went to the bar later in the day, and that's what kept me going. My life was all about bars. There was a time when the man that I was dating happened to be a man from Ireland who was a bartender. He was tall, he was handsome, and I got free drinks, and it was wonderful. He happened to have a wife and 3 children in Boston. We met in Chicago. This alcoholic said, they're in Boston. This is Chicago. It doesn't count. When he decided that he was on his geographic and was coming to Los Angeles, I just hopped on the plane and came along. I was not invited to come along. But I had found my drinking partner and I wanted to stay in. That was a relationship that, for most of us alcoholic women, became very rough. We fought a lot. I did not have any idea of what an Al-Anon was, and I would get up in his face. You guys ever had a woman get up in your face and accuse you of things that maybe you weren't even doing? And the only place you had to go was to fight back, and that fighting back always came back at me. And I would be hurt, the police would be called, and I would say, how is this happening? Where have I gone wrong? What have I done? I was taught to be a lady. I was taught to be somebody who cared about other people and to help other people. What am I doing? One of the fellows that I was dating also at that time, that relationship ended. It just got to a point where it was more than I really wanted to put up with and couldn't figure out how to get out of it. But he went on his way. I stayed in Los Angeles. I always worked. I always supported myself because I knew nobody else would support me. I have to do this for me. I have to take care of me. He went on his way. I met the next person and the next person, and then the next person said to me, you have a problem. Not sure what it is. Now, the fact that his mother and I drank the same, and the fact that I would stop and visit his mother after work and bring a bottle with me, and the 2 of us could drink, and the fact that one of those times that I did this, Mom was in bed, drunk, smoking, and set her bedroom on fire. Now, this man thought I had a problem. This man suggested that I go to a therapist. And I went to this therapist. I went 3 times. I listened to what she had to say. I told her this much about me. If you be alcoholic, you have a lot of secrets. Thank God we have a 4th step in our 12-step program. And after the 3rd time, I thought, I'm just wasting time and money. She sent me to you. But I came to you because I followed direction. I want you to like me. And I came to you, a group like tonight, clean, classy, pulled together, intelligent people. I didn't identify with the word you said. I did not want to be here. When you said, keep coming back, I thought, you know, you need to do that. You are so bad. And I'll just go about my life, thank you very much. And besides that, you're not a very class act. And I really don't want to be involved with somebody who is not a class act. How could anyone come to a podium and talk to a room filled with people about the things they had done? What about your secrets? What about what you have to keep to yourself? That's what I was concerned about. Not so much that I had a disease. I did not hear that. I did not hear that alcoholism was a disease. I did not hear that the cure for my disease were the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous where I would get the fellowship. The fellowship would lead me into the 12-step program because that would lead me to a sponsor who would help me get through what I needed to get through. So I left for 6 more years. On May the 10th of 1971, thank you God, I took my last drink. I was never into pills. I was not into that white powder. I was not into whatever you were doing. All my friends were doing that, and the guys coming home from service, certainly. At that time, heroin was a big drug. But when I saw you lining white powder up on a table, when I saw you take an inner tube from a car, and yes, those of you who are younger than myself, we had rubber inner tubes in a car. In the tire. It went in the tire to make the tire roll. And you would take that inner tube and cut it up and tie off and do whatever you did, and I thought, I know you're crazy. I know I don't want to get involved. And when you would open your hand and you had many, many colors of pills and you offered me, I took, but I went to the nearest wastebasket or toilet and got rid of it because I was afraid of it. I was afraid, thank you God, that you gave me that fear. But being an addictive personality, had I ever gotten involved, who knows? Who knows? But I kept coming back to the rooms of alcohol. May the 10th, 1971, what I knew is I belonged on Skid Row. What I knew is I had nothing to offer anybody. I had left my family in Chicago. I had reunited with them. They loved me. They wanted me to come back home. But I couldn't let them know the life I was living. I could not let them know who I was as a woman alcoholic. I was too ashamed. I continued coming back to you until that day when I said, I still had money. Every time I missed work because I was drunk and couldn't get there, or every time I missed work because it was the flu season or whatever season it was, I would call work and say, and we alcoholics are so clever. My aunt died in San Diego, so I can't go there again. My uncle died in somewhere else, so I can't go there again. I've got to keep it straight where I'm telling the office that I'm going for the week because somebody in the family had died. And when I took 2 days off, I knew Monday and Tuesday too many times they're going to know. They're going to know something's wrong. Take the week off. Where were my vacations spent? Drinking, under the covers, hating myself, being afraid to come out from under those covers. Again, we women alcoholic, bad as it was for you men, and I'm not denying it wasn't difficult for the male alcoholic, but for us women trying to hide, trying to keep a separate life going, was very, very difficult, very, very hard. I have a brother who is on the program. I'll get there in a minute. What I knew I had to do was move to Skid Row. I had driven through Skid Row on the way to work downtown many times. I had ridden a bus through Skid Row. I had seen the men. At that time, it was mostly men on the streets, sleeping on the sidewalk or sleeping in a doorway, and many, many times I saw a brown bag next to them, and I thought, that's me. That's me. That's where I belong. So in that last drunk, I knew I had to get down there. I could buy a case of alcohol. I did have the money. Alcohol was not as expensive as it is today. I could rent a room. I could just drink myself to death, and when the body was found, it would be another Jane Doe. And who would care? Because I didn't care. Because I was hopeless. I was helpless. And if I didn't care, how could I feel that anybody else would care? On a Monday night, when I was drunk one more time, I was living with David Albrecht, and as he was moving his things out of the apartment, I swore if he left me, I would kill myself. Now, David had not been to a single Al-Anon meeting, but he said, if you kill yourself, I won't be here to watch you, so good luck. I thought, how cruel, how cold. And off he went. The next morning, I came through on my living room floor. And as always, my living room is always pulled together. Further into the house wasn't so pulled together. But if you came home with me and I was drunk, I really didn't care. I woke up on that on the living room floor. My drapes were always pulled together, but there was a little draw in the center of the drapes. There was a ray of sunlight coming through those drapes. And as I came to, something, my first spiritual experience, said, God loves you, why can't you love yourself? That frightened me to death. I believed in a God, I was raised with a God, I trusted a God, but when I was doing what I was doing and knew I was a morally bad person, I took a statue of the Sacred Heart and I put it on my bookcase behind the books. And I actually said, I'll be back later. But right now, this is not working for me or you. And I hid that statue. And as I came to that morning and sat on my sofa in the living room, David Albrecht was gone. I knew my job was now lost. I had taken so much time off. And the women that I worked with, my boss believed every time I called in sick. You know, again, we're very clever people. And if you've been sick, you better show up with no makeup. Don't do your hair too well. And act very pathetically like you've really been sick. But of course, when you're hungover, you're pretty sick, or so I was. And I tried that so many times that I knew I couldn't try it one more time. I knew there were no more times left. I knew I had hit the bottom, so don't bother calling the office. Don't bother. You've lost the job. And I was so defeated that I really didn't care, but I couldn't even kill myself. I couldn't even get myself down to Skid Row. You know, tearing up my driver's license, which was my identification, I was nobody. I was erased. I was gone. That was a Tuesday. On Thursday, I made a phone call. And I called my brother, who had joined a fellowship. Many of you know John O'Connor. He was my Eskimo. He talked to me about a fellowship that he had joined. My head said, he's a good soul. He's always helped people. He's always collected puppies and kitty cats and brought them home. So he's a good guy. He's probably joined the Salvation Army, and he's probably beating drums somewhere. As demoralized as I was, as hopeless, as helpless as I was, I didn't want to beat a drum. I wasn't going to join whatever he had joined. He never mentioned Alcoholics Anonymous. He only talked about the fellowship. He only talked about he went to meetings and had friends who were helping him, and he didn't drink anymore. My head also said, good for him, because he was a pretty bad drinker. And later we had a discussion, and he said to me, you know, if you hadn't drank so much, I wouldn't have drank so much. Does that sound like two alcoholics competing with each other, or what? I called my brother, and I said, I will try. I will try whatever you are doing. He said, I will pick you up tonight and take you to a meeting. And I said, oh, no, I can't go tonight. See, what I thought is I better be respectable. I better pull myself together. I better make sure I have a clean outfit of clothing. I better make sure that I wash and comb my hair. I better be sure that you will accept me wherever I'm going. Little did I know that you would accept me with open arms. Little did I know when I met some of my brother's friends. He at that time had 8 months of sobriety, and his friend said, we've been saving a seat for you. I didn't know what that meant, but I didn't care. To the point of desperation, I didn't care. My brother took me to a meeting on Saturday night. I made the call on Thursday. We went to a meeting on Saturday night. It happened to be Pacific Group. I had no idea of what was going on. You laughed at the wrong times when somebody was talking. You were telling your story, as I say, that I thought was so shameful. But I kept coming back. You women moved in. At the break, my brother got lost somewhere in the room, and you women moved in. You women gave me your phone number. You women said, we'll meet you tomorrow morning at Normandy and Wilshire at that meeting. I just showed up because that's what you told me to do. I got to that meeting the next morning. And that morning you said to me, we're back in this room tonight. We'll meet you back here. I went to the rooms with you women. When somebody said, would you like a cup of coffee? And I said yes. The women said, Peggy, you walk to the coffee pot. You don't know who you will meet on your way to that coffee pot that you can talk to. You don't know who you will meet that can help you. And maybe you can help them. I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I can't help myself. How could I help anyone else? But I did what you women told me to do. A lot of the times, I'll be honest, I thought, do you know who I am? Don't you get that I have enough common sense to know this? but I was hurting so much inside. And to get that attention, to allow me to feel that you cared. I never felt anybody cared. And I kept coming back. I met my Al-Anon. A lot of you in this room know Jeannie Kissel. At that time, there were 4 of us that ran together. There was Jack Kissel, the alcoholic. There was Don Madden, the alcoholic. There was Peggy, the alcoholic. And then Jean Kissel, the Al-Anon. The 4 of us went to dinner and a meeting every Saturday night. Jeannie became my Al-Anon. So I would get Al-Anon from Jeannie. I felt safe with Jeannie. And we got to our AA meetings. And Donald Madden was one of these AAers. He's up in God's heaven now, died sober, as did Jack Kissel, died sober. Donald Madden would round us up 2 and 3 times a week. And we would go out to meetings where we shared. We either read or we did 5 minutes of sharing. And I said to Donald, but I can't do that. I can't read. I can't do whatever you're asking me to do. And he would say, you can't or you won't. I will never forget those words. And to this day, is it I can't or I won't? And I said, but the words get stuck in my throat. The words don't come out. He said, keep talking and they will come out. I did what he asked me to do. I showed up at his house 2 and 3 times a week, and off to meetings we went. I always stood on the outside of the circle because I wanted to hear what you had to say. I wanted to hear you solve your problem. Identified with that, but I was afraid to let you know that was one of my problems. And I kept coming back, and the time went on. When I was 2.5 years sober, I became secretary of the Los Feliz group in the Hollywood area, which forced me to go to more meetings because I wanted every speaker that I brought back to be the best. Because again, I wanted you to say, isn't she great? But it enhanced my program. It got me in the middle when I didn't know I was in the middle. But it was working. One day at a time. I got home from meetings at night. I was tired. And I would say to somebody, I can't go to fellowship. I'm really tired. And I'm sure we've all heard, you don't die from being tired.
To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. At that time, you could buy macaroni and cheese, Kraft macaroni and cheese for like 20, 25 cents a box. And that would make a whole little pot of macaroni and cheese. And when I couldn't sleep and I couldn't drink, my dog and I would eat macaroni and cheese. But it worked. It worked. So whatever we find that works in sobriety is what we do. And it makes us comfortable. And it keeps us coming back. You know, in my 44 years of sobriety, and thank you, God, for every one of those days, I have never not wanted to be a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have never looked at my God as I understand him and said, it isn't working. Whatever has come into my life, there's a purpose. There is a reason. You know, I was telling David earlier that I had 3 siblings. There were 6 of us. Now there are 3 of us in a year and a half. I lost 3 siblings. What I found, I was starting to slip into a depression until I stopped to pray and meditate and find out what's going on. What's going on? I do have 2 people I call sponsor. One of those men is a psychologist. He is my friend. He's not my psychologist, but he is a man that has sobriety, that I go to, that I trust. And when I come to you with a problem and ask what is my solution, don't be kind to me because I'm old. Don't be nice to me because I have 44 years of sobriety. Tell me the truth, because I am an alcoholic. When I hear long-timers relapse, it really frightens me. What could have gone wrong? You know, what happened here? What we hear most of the time is, stopped going to meetings, stopped working with others, didn't connect with a sponsor, just stopped working with others. What I believe all God wants from any one of us to be of service and to love one another. That's so simple. It's very simple. It's very easy. And here's where we learn to do that, because that's what we get back. You know, what we put out there does come back to us. I will tell you, I got married on this program. My AA babies and friends had a huge wedding reception for me. I went back to Illinois, and my family had another huge reception. It was great. It was wonderful. David Albrecht was not an alcoholic. He did not need this program. He did need the Al-Anon program, but wasn't interested, thank you. One night he stayed out of the house. It was not his pattern. I searched the streets. I called the police station. I called the hospitals. He was a biker. I thought maybe the bike had gone down somewhere. Something had happened. The next morning at 9 o'clock, the phone rang. It was David. And, of course, my first words were, "Where are you? What happened?" And he said, "I'm calling to tell you I'm not coming back." Are you in trouble? Are you on drugs? Have you been gambling? That's where this head went. What happened? I didn't see this coming. I wasn't aware. And when he came home to pick up his things, it was, our life had changed. I had changed. Things had changed. I'm sure I put out that I didn't need anybody, that I was pretty independent, that I could take care of myself, and I'm sure that was the message that I put out there, not intentionally. And David decided to go on his way. My ego said, "You make me look bad." I was Mrs. AA. I was sponsoring all these women. I was going to all these meetings. I was being of service. How dare you make me look bad? There was another woman in the wings. And when I found that out, I really went ballistic. Thank God for our second step, that God would restore me to sanity, because I certainly was insane. David had been a marksman in the Marine Corps. He taught me how to use a gun. How do you know what I'm going to do? Dr. Kohler, this is for you. There were guns in the guest closet that he had not taken out of the house yet. My devious mind said, I can find out where he is. He's with her. I can take one of those guns. After I find out where he is, because as an FBI person, I'm great. I ask a million questions and I keep prodding until I get it. And what I would do is go to the apartment and he would answer the door and I would shoot him, and if I got her, whoops, sorry. I called my sponsor and I told her what I was thinking. And she had her husband come to the house and get the guns out of the house. My pride and my ego were bruised. Yeah, how dare you? How dare you bruise my pride and my ego? Again, back to that, don't you know who I am? I'm Mrs. AA. I'm doing all the right thing. How dare you? And you know what? I'm ashamed to admit that, but my head said, she's not smarter than I am. She's not prettier than I am. She has nothing going for her. What are you leaving for? My head, my judgment of another human being. It was a difficult time, and at that time, my secretary at work offered me a Valium. And I said, no, thank you. Again, she offered me a Valium. I allowed myself to be pretty much of an emotional mess. And the third time, I said yes. She put him in a little brown envelope, went home that night, dumped him out on the kitchen table, bargained with God. Okay, God, if you don't take this pain away, I will take these Valium. And I did what you taught me to do. Go through the drunk. Mentally walk through. Take these Valium, go back down to Hollywood Boulevard, go into that bar, get drunk, find him, start it all over again. And what I knew is what I had found here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I did not want to lose. And what I knew is I don't ever want to be that woman again. Worked for a company for 19 and a half years. The Mama Papa Fortune 500 company sold to a conglomerate out of Tyler, Michigan. And I, at that time, it was a man's company. It had always been a man's company. There were two of us ladies who were lady executives. And I was let go. The college boys were coming in, and my job would be given to one of these men with their college degree. I have no degrees. Thank you, God. Through Alcoholics Anonymous, I have common sense. That's what God gave me, which has gotten me through a lot. I left that job that day, and as I left, after 19 and a half years, I left with a cardboard box about this big of all I had collected in 19 and a half years. And I said, this is what I have to show? Where will I go tomorrow? What will I do tomorrow? What you taught me. I'll go to the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous this afternoon, and I will talk to the women and let them know what has happened. I am now a single woman. I've been divorced. I have myself to take care of. I'll probably lose my house, and I'll probably lose my car. But I have to come and talk to you because you have never steered me wrong. You have never given me information that wasn't positive and that didn't work for me. And I came to you, and that's what happened. And a day at a time, I was looking for work in what I had done. A Fortune 500 company that manufactured plumbing and heating items. I worked in the office. My sponsor, many of you probably knew Nancy Chandler, said Friendly House is looking for an executive director. I was 12 years sober at that time, and I said, what is Friendly House? See, when we got sober back then, you went to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You sat on your hands and you shook it out. You had somebody come and do a couch commitment at your house to get you through the night. There were no treatment centers. There were no hospitals. If you had to go to the county hospital to get a Valium or whatever, that's what we did with you that was shaking out of your alcohol. I came to Friendly House and talked to the women on the board saying, what do you do here? What are you looking for? They weren't quite sure. But again, I have enough common sense. I'm 12 years sober. These are women who want to get sober. I'll do it for 6 months. I'll do this for 6 months, and then I'll find the right person for this job. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that was 32 years ago. What I know is I got out of my own way and let God be the director. What I know is every woman that walked through that door at Friendly House was a woman just like me. She had alcoholism and needed help. I knew how to do that. I'd been sober for 12 years. I had worked 12 steps. I can do that. Running the house with what needs to be done and keeping a house together and putting meals together and doing grocery shopping, I can do that. All of us women know something about running a house. And in doing it, what I again found is God had given me something I could not do for myself. He had allowed me to be the messenger of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It happened to be in a closed setting, and at that time, there were not treatment centers. There were not recovery homes. Now there's one on every block, which I have my opinion about that. You don't want to hear it. One-on-one, I'll be happy to tell you. What we do at Friendly House, my assistant Monica is here with me tonight, and she's a woman who went through Friendly House. She has 8 years of sobriety, and the two of us are moving to the next phase. There will come a time that I will move on. I don't know when. I haven't planned it yet. But Monica will be there. We learn from each other. We're teaching each other. And it will remain a home that work a 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous with the women that go through that house. I mean, that's all we know, and that's what we will continue to do. And I want to say that out loud because I'm really proud to say that we believe in this program. We know this program works. Look around this room. Look around many, many rooms. Alcoholics Anonymous works if you have a problem with alcohol. Alcoholics Anonymous works if you have a problem with life and you use alcohol as your solution. I'm so glad I found Alcoholics Anonymous 44 years ago, and I am so glad that I accepted the gift. The gift of sobriety is a gift. It's a gift from God. I believe we were put out there. We came to the crossing of the road. We decided we wanted to party, we wanted to drink, we wanted to have fun. We thought that was having fun. We took that road. And I do believe that God said at whatever point we came in here, it's time for you to pull in now. It's time for you to stop what you're doing. I'll talk about Peggy. Stop what you're doing and be of service to another and love another. Be kind and be there. That's what you have taught me in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm glad I said thank you, God, for the gift. I'm glad that I today can say I'm doing what is necessary to keep the gift of sobriety. You know, I go to 4 meetings a week. If I speak at a meeting, I do not count that as a meeting that I've gone to. I do believe when you're giving, you're emptying your cup. I do believe, I'll back to me, when I am listening, I'm filling my cup. I've heard so many fabulous things this weekend. I met Beverly this weekend, who is absolutely a love. She too loves Alcoholics Anonymous. And David, where you are, thank you so much for putting this on every year. It's a lot of work. And watching you, because I do get involved at our luncheon every year, which is another big, wonderful success. But I'm not here to plug it, but if you want to know about it, I'll be glad to tell you. But David, I've watched you as you work through the crowd, and you're so gracious, and you're friendly, and you acknowledge people. God bless you. God bless you for what you do to allow all of us to be here. Thank you and your committee for allowing me to be here tonight. Thank my friends Ed and Deanna, and of course Monica and Ross for being with me, carrying me through this weekend. I love all of you, and I thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. And let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected. even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.